I would like to focus our discussion now for the remaining minutes to the theory of evolution. And I'll start with this. I think I heard you in an interview talking about a conference in London in 2016 where evolutionists were looking for a third way, which implied perhaps that Darwinism is not a satisfactory theory anymore. Could you tell us about the context of this
Yeah,
concern and what was the
absolutely.
reason they brought that up?
The modern version of Darwinian theory, known as neo-Darwinism, is now widely critiqued, challenged, and rejected in peer-reviewed biological publications, including the writings of evolutionary biologists themselves. There was a scientist at this Royal Society conference in London in 2016 who said, criticism of neo-Darwinism is so early 90s. He said, in other words, it was not just the theory is passé, but critiquing the theory is passé. We know it doesn't work. So let's get on. So let's get on with it. And what the conference was convened to discuss was some new theories of evolution or new mechanisms that could generate biological form and structure, either to replace the mutation selection mechanism or to somehow complement it, so to give it creative power that increasingly scientists recognize it does not have. And the opening talk at the conference was given by an Austrian evolutionary biologist named Gerd Müller, who listed the explanatory deficits of neo-Darwinism. And they had to do with, well, for example, the abrupt appearance of new form in the fossil record, but also the absence of mechanisms that could generate large-scale morphological innovation as opposed to minor variations. So if you want to build a whole new form of animal life with a new body plan, where a body plan is a unique arrangement of body parts and tissues from something completely different, we don't have an evolutionary mechanism that has the causal power to do that. We don't know of a mechanism that can do that. And so that's what the conference was about. It was exploring other possible mechanisms or evolutionary theories. Now, none of these people who organized the conference were proponents of intelligent design. I happen to know that about 20% of the people who attended the conference were at least quietly supportive of intelligent design, some less quietly. And so I think there's a great ferment right now. I explained one of the problems with the mutation selection mechanism earlier in the interview. If you want to change a section of genetic text and do it by making a series of random changes to the characters in the genetic message or the genetic in a gene, the A's, C's, G's, and T's, the digital carriers of information in DNA, random changes will very quickly degrade that information to the point of it losing function long before it will generate something new. There's an underlying mathematical reason for this that I've explored in my books. It's our colleague David Berlinski calls it the problem of combinatorial inflation. Turns out there are far more ways of arranging the genetic letters, the A's, C's, G's, and T's, that will generate gibberish than there are ways that will generate meaningful genetic text that will produce proteins. And the technical name for this is the extreme rarity of functional genes and proteins in the sequence space of all the possible ways there are of arranging the parts of the DNA or the parts of a protein. And so there are mathematical considerations that come into play. One scientist, Douglas Axe, who did 14 years of research on this at Cambridge University, determined that the ratio of functional sequences to non-functional sequences in a relatively short protein was on the order of 1 part in 10 to the 77th power. So if you think of a great big haystack and a tiny little, and the needle hidden in a tiny little corner, unless you've got a long time to look, you're not going to find the needle. And this is basically the problem, is that the rarity of functional sequences is such that random searches for those sequences via mutation and selection are not going to work. There's not going to be anything to select because the random mutations are never going to find the very rare sequences that are present that we now know are that rare. So There's a lot more to say about all this, but it's a little technical.
Yeah.